"You're nothing but a nuisance," my sister snapped. My mom added, "This family would finally have peace without you." I didn't argue. I just walked out. That was last weekend. Today, I woke up to 21 missed calls. I, 32 am, had always been the family disappointment. Not because I was a failure, but because I never played their games. While my sister built her perfect image and my parents showered her with praise, I kept my head down, worked my engineering job, and minded my own business. That was my mistake, thinking minding my own business would be enough. Last weekend changed everything. I had driven 3 hours to attend my sister's engagement party, bringing an expensive gift and genuinely trying to be supportive. The moment I walked into my childhood home, I could feel the familiar tension. My sister barely acknowledged me, too busy playing the perfect daughter role for her future in-laws. Everything fell apart during dinner. My sister was telling some elaborate story about her promotion at the marketing firm, embellishing details that I knew weren't true. When her fiancé asked me about my work, I mentioned my recent project, designing safety systems for a major construction company. It was actually pretty significant work, but I kept it brief. My sister's face darkened. She had always hated when anyone else got attention, even for a moment. She interrupted me mid-sentence, her voice sharp and cutting. She told me I was nothing but a nuisance, always trying to make everything about myself. The words hit harder than they should have, especially in front of everyone. But it was my mother's response that broke something in me. Instead of defending me or even staying neutral, she nodded along. She said the family would finally have peace without me around. The room went silent. Even my sister's fiancé looked uncomfortable. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice or make a scene. I simply stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out. No dramatic speeches, no slamming doors. I just left. The drive home was a blur. 3 hours of highway lights and radio static while I processed what had just happened. Not just the words themselves, but the realization that this was how they truly saw me. After 32 years of trying to maintain some connection to my family, they had finally shown me exactly where I stood. I spent the next week in a strange state of clarity. I blocked all their numbers, deleted them from social media, and started making changes I should have made years ago. My lease was up in 2 months anyway, so I began looking at apartments across the country. My company had been wanting me to relocate to their Seattle office, and suddenly that seemed like the perfect opportunity. But I wasn't done. If they wanted me gone, I would give them exactly what they asked for, but not before they understood what they were losing. I had been the family's unofficial IT support for years, managing everything from my parents' online banking to my sister's website for her side business. More importantly, I had access to information they had forgotten I possessed. My sister's perfect image wasn't as perfect as everyone believed. I started with small things. I changed the passwords on accounts I managed and removed myself as the emergency contact for various services. Then I began gathering evidence of things I had kept quiet about for years. My sister's tax irregularities, her inflated resume claims, the fact that her side business was actually losing money despite her claims of success. I wasn't planning to destroy her life, just remove the facade she had built. The truth had a way of revealing itself once you stopped covering for people. Update 1. By Wednesday, my phone started ringing. I had forgotten that several family financial accounts still listed me as the primary contact. When automatic payments failed because I had removed my banking information from their shared accounts, questions started arising. My father called first, confused about why the family phone bill had been disconnected. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded more puzzled than angry, asking me to call back about some account issues. My sister called next. Her tone was completely different from the previous weekend, suddenly sweet and apologetic. She left a message saying she had been stressed about the wedding and didn't mean what she said. She needed help with her website, which had apparently crashed. I deleted both messages without listening to them completely. Thursday brought more calls. My mother this time, her voice tight with frustration. She left a message demanding I fix whatever I had done to their accounts and stop being childish. She said family disagreements were normal and I was overreacting. The irony wasn't lost on me. When they needed something, suddenly I was family again. Update 2. Friday evening, my sister showed up at my apartment. I watched from my window as she knocked repeatedly, then used her phone to call me. I didn't answer the door or the phone. She finally left after 20 minutes, but not before shouting that she knew I was home and that I was being ridiculous. The next morning brought a different kind of call. My sister's fiancé, Someone I had barely spoken to before left a careful message asking if we could talk. His tone was professional, almost legal. That's when I realized my sister had probably told him about some of the financial irregularities that were coming to light. I had underestimated how interconnected their lives were with the accounts and services I had been managing. What I thought would be minor inconveniences were apparently causing significant problems. But I wasn't ready to engage. Not yet. Update 3. Saturday brought a visit from my father. Unlike my sister's dramatic appearance, he simply sat in his car outside my building for 2 hours. I could see him from my window, occasionally checking his phone, but mostly just waiting. Finally, my curiosity got the better of me. I went down to talk to him. He looked older than I remembered, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. He asked me to get in the car so we could talk privately. Against my better judgment, I did. He started by apologizing, not for what had been said, but for how it had been said. He tried to explain that family dynamics were complicated, that my mother and sister had been under stress. But then he got to the real reason he was there. My sister's business was in trouble. The website crash had revealed some deeper issues with her online presence, and several clients were asking questions about her credentials. More problematically, there were discrepancies in her tax filings that were now getting attention from the IRS. He asked me directly if I had done something to cause these problems. I told him honestly that I had simply stopped covering for people and removed myself from accounts where I didn't belong. I hadn't created any problems. I had just stopped solving them quietly. His face went pale when he realized the scope of what I had been handling behind the scenes for years. Update 4. That evening, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my sister's fiancé calling from his office. He was polite but direct. He had apparently done some investigating after my sister's problems began surfacing, and he had discovered the extent of her financial irregularities. He wasn't calling to blame me or ask me to fix things. He was calling to inform me that he was ending his engagement. He said he couldn't build a life with someone who had been deceiving him about fundamental aspects of her business and finances. He thanked me, actually thanked me, for letting the truth come to light before he had legally tied himself to her problems. I hung up feeling a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. This wasn't what I had intended, but it was the natural consequence of stopping my protection of her image. Update 5. Sunday morning brought the 21 missed calls. I woke up to my phone buzzing constantly. Messages from my mother, father, and sister, each more desperate than the last. The wedding was off. My sister's business was under investigation. My parents had discovered they were somehow liable for some of her debts because of how she had structured her accounts. The perfect family image was crumbling, and they needed me to fix it. But I was already gone. Not physically yet, but mentally I had walked out of that dining room last weekend and never looked back. I listened to one message from my mother. Her voice was broken, pleading. She said she was sorry, that they needed me, that the family was falling apart without me there to hold things together. The family would have peace without me, she had said. Now she was learning what that peace actually looked like. I spent Sunday packing. My apartment lease break was expensive, but I had savings they didn't know about. The Seattle job had come through faster than expected, and I would be starting in 2 weeks. Update 6. Monday brought a final attempt. All 3 of them showed up at my apartment together. I watched from my window as they stood outside my building, clearly arguing among themselves. My sister looked devastated, my mother was crying, and my father just looked defeated. They took turns calling me, leaving messages that ranged from apologetic to demanding to desperate. My sister admitted she had made mistakes and needed my help to fix them. My mother said she loved me and begged me to come home. My father offered to pay for whatever help I needed to straighten out the financial mess. But they still didn't understand. This wasn't about money or technical problems. This was about 32 years of being treated as expendable until the moment I became essential. I had spent years being their safety net, quietly fixing problems and covering for their mistakes, because that's what family did. But when I needed basic respect and inclusion, I was nothing but a nuisance. They had gotten exactly what they asked for. A family without me in it. The fact that this family was now falling apart wasn't my fault. It was the natural result of removing the person who had been holding it together all along. I finished packing that evening. My flight to Seattle was Wednesday morning. Update 7. Tuesday was my last day in town. I went to my office to finish the transition of my projects and say goodbye to colleagues. Several people mentioned how good I looked, how relaxed I seemed. I realized I felt lighter than I had in years. My phone rang constantly throughout the day. I had stopped checking the messages, but the frequency told me everything I needed to know about how desperate they were becoming. That evening, I did something I hadn't planned. I wrote them a letter. Not an email or a text, but an actual physical letter. I kept it simple and honest. I told them that I had always loved them, but that I couldn't continue being their emergency solution while being treated as their everyday problem. I explained that I hadn't sabotaged anything. I had simply stopped enabling behavior that wasn't healthy for any of us. I wrote that I hoped they would find a way to solve their problems, but that I wouldn't be available to do it for them anymore. I wished them well, but I was building a new life where my contributions were valued and my presence was welcomed. I left the letter on my mother's windshield at 2 a.m., then went home to finish my final preparations. Wednesday morning, I turned off my phone and boarded my flight to Seattle. As the plane lifted off, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: genuine excitement for my future. The family had wanted peace without me. I was finally giving us all exactly what we needed: the chance to discover who we really were when we stopped playing the roles that were destroying us. 3 weeks later, I turned my phone back on. There were over 100 messages, but I deleted them all without reading them. Whatever they had to say, it was part of a life I had chosen to leave behind. I was building something new now. Something where being helpful wasn't taken for granted, where being present was appreciated, and where walking away wasn't necessary because respect was mutual. They had called me a nuisance. They were right. I had been a nuisance to their dysfunction. And now they were learning what their dysfunction looked like without someone constantly managing it. That was their lesson to learn, not mine to teach. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.